Well, folks, another great tournament. The 2015 Tradewise Gibraltar Chess Festival being played in Gibraltar. Unbelievable scenery. Gibraltar is an amazing place, amazing place. World-class players, one of the top-rated opens in the world. Karl Nakamura, Topalov, ex-world champion, Hou Yifan, you name it, they're there. Oh, a whole lot of English players, you name it, they're all over the world. And they all come here to Gibraltar once a year for the Gibraltar Chess Festival 2015 from January 26th to February 15th, 2015. Don't miss any of these great games. And here are the final standings in one of the coolest tournaments in the world, the Gibraltar Chess Festival 2015. Great tournament. You see all the players that come here, players you don't get to see much, especially if you live in the States. Great talent coming up. Some old veterans, some young people. Oh, a lot of women. This is big on women. This because there's women's prizes that are head and shoulders above almost anywhere else. In first place, my compadre and buddy from the United States, Karl Nakamura, played a hell of a tournament. Got his rating back, #1 in the U.S. I believe he might be at his highest rating ever for himself, ever, in his lifetime. Close second, and played a hell of a tournament as well. David Howell from England with 8. Hou Yifan, current women's world champion, tied for 3rd now. Hou Yifan also got quite a bit of prizes for the women's category. I believe she got over $20,000 in total this tournament. Not bad. Also with 7.5, Vidagov, Topalov, Wagner, Owi, Adavan, Hare Krishna, Bachman, Matlakov. With 7, Peter's Fiddler, who did pretty good considering he got a bye in 1 round. Also with 7, Yakovenko, Narditsky. Daniel Narditsky, young American player, did very well with 7. Richard Rapport from Hungary with 7. Navate from Israel. Satovsky from Israel. Good showing by his Israelis. I believe it's pronounced Bok from Netherlands. And Sep Gupta from India with also 7. And there you have the top 20 finishers in one of the coolest tournaments in the world, the Gibraltar Chess Festival 2015. Hi folks, John Cordisco here. The last round, the 10th round of one of the coolest tournaments in the world, the Gibraltar Chess Festival. This comes from the Masters section, and this could be going for first place here. Hou Yifan as white, current women's world champion, having a hell of a tournament. And David Howell from England, also having a hell of a tournament. David has to win this game. Right now he is 1/2 point behind Karl Nakamura, who's in first place. He has 7.5, and Karl has 8. He's a 1/2 point behind. So let's get to it. It's going to be a 4 nights. Believe it or not, I like these tournaments like this that aren't the. And nothing against it, because I've been watching the Grenke and some of them. They're always the same players over and over, usually 1 or 2 different. But it's good to mix it up because you see a lot of different openings, and it's just cool. Bishop b5, knight f6. The other knight comes out. This is what I play, so I can. Current women's world champion is playing the same openings as myself. That's cool. Bishop c5, both castles. d3. Now, according to the computer I have off screen, this is the last book move. Now, my understanding is rook to e8. Bishop g5. All seems like standard stuff to me. h6. Now, you and I would probably go bishop h4. But the computer always takes. Queen takes. Knight d5. Queen has to go back, because it's got to guard this pawn here. That fork is just brutal. c3. I think it's making an escape square. Also, the d4 square, but I think it's making an escape square for the bishop. a6, bishop a4, bishop a7, brings the bishop right back. Now the computer likes d6 and bishop a7 about equally. Bishop a7 now is kind of creeping up. It's still doing its job. It's still covering all these squares, and it's still causing pressure on the white king. So that's a good spot for that bishop, I think. Eventually, you move the pawn here, and this bishop will get out. So they both have free reign, and that's pretty good. H3. Knight E7. That was also the computer's choice. D4. If white had taken, after rook takes, bishop B3, D6. Small advantage for white. After D4, knight takes, pawn takes, knight takes, B5, bishop comes back to C2. Makes perfect sense. Now how's white going to defend that D5 pawn? Queen to F6, hitting the knight right away. Queen to D3. Now, the third move on the computer, and it's pretty distant in points, is bishop takes D4. That's probably what I would do. That's why these guys are playing in Gibraltar and I'm not. I would play bishop takes. If pawn takes, you double it up. If queen takes, and then the pawn takes anyway, and you double it up again. So, well, oh well. G6, just to block that. Bishop, queen battery. Pawn. C5. D takes en passant. D takes. A takes. C takes. C takes instead of A takes. A little bit better. Not much better on the computer, but a little bit better. Rook A to E1, bringing the rooks to the center. Rook takes. Now, so far it's a fairly even game. I gotta say, it's not the most exciting game I've seen from David or Hou Yifan, but they're trying, and there's a lot at stake for David. He has to win with black. Not an easy task against anybody, especially Hou Yifan. Bishop now. Look at these two bishops. Man. Just breathing down your neck. That's tough. Of course, Hou Yifan, perfectly cool and calm. Bishop B3, not a problem. Rook comes over to pin the knight, and the queen just moves to G3. Now you can all see why. Bishop takes, pawn takes, king G7. Well, you see why rook didn't take. If rook had taken, queen checks, and you lose the bishop. So those free pawns always so free, guys. You see a free pawn? Sit on your hands for a minute when you're playing in a game and check it out first. King to G7. Now rook to D1 to defend the pawn. Rook D7. Not as good it would have been if rook took. Then after rook takes, queen C7. That's just asking for trouble. Now you've got to go back. How are you going to guard? You're going to have to go here with the bishop and trade. It's just not desirable. After rook to D7, queen C3. To guard the pawn and get that nice file. H5. Bishop A2. Now right now, it's a tiny advantage for black. And you're going to see here shortly that this gets to be really brutal. Queen C6, threatening mate. Queen takes, bishop takes, B4. Okay, you put the isolated pawn on a dark square or the light squared bishop. Okay, that's fine. How are we going to proceed from here? Tiny advantage for black. King comes up. Good idea. As we all know, kings are very powerful pieces in the endgame. They're worth more than a bishop or a knight and just less than a rook at 4 points. D5. I like that move a lot. It's very forcing. Computer like king to F1. Bishop B3. F3. But D5, though, that's a very human move. Forcing the bishop to come back. And now F4. And it's about even. In fact, the next three suggestions from the computer are all 0.00. King to E7. King's coming over. D6 check. Get the pawn off a light square and push the king away. Where does the king go? Can't go here because of the bishop. He's got to come back to F6. Okay. G4. Pawn takes, pawn takes. Now this is a move that the computer didn't like at all. At all. It had a single question mark, not a double. So it's not the end of the world. G5 for David. And I think he just made himself a world of hurt. Now that's a very natural move. Because you can't, pawn takes, king can't take, because you drop this pawn, but F takes, king almost has to take, but he went to G6 instead. And what David just did is what happens to all chess players. A little inaccurate. His nerves are probably getting to him. Now we're on move 36. I forgot to mention, at about move 25 or so, David basically had no time left. The last 10 moves to time control, the 40th move, David was down to seconds, and they get a 30-second increment. So every time David moved to show his clock, he had 35 seconds. I mean, this guy was just playing on the increment in a complicated endgame. And the game he has to win. So now what has to happen is something that all us chess players hate. We get in a game, we're playing okay, we mess up, but it's not enough to lose, but you have to play really, really hard. You have to play your best. You have to suffer through everything just to draw. And that's a killer. So let's see what happens. Give you an idea, if king had taken, bishop takes, bishop f3, and not looking so hot for black. After king to g6, she goes to b1 check. King has to take, bishop, rook d8, king to f2, and d7 are the two choices on the computer. She decided to go d7. Okay. As I always say, what to do, what to do. And this is just murderous to figure out. Bishop f3, rook d4, guarding both pawns, actually all three of white's pawns. King f6, king comes over. I guess the idea is trade off these pieces, and white slowly creeps over with the king and wins. I guess that's the theory of this ending. Rook d3, bishop b7. This is just murderous for black. I mean, one error and the game is over. I mean, I don't envy David at all here. It's about a 1.5 advantage, those of you who are keeping track, for white. King to f2. Here comes the white king. King to e7 has to. Got to pick up that pawn. Rook checks. King to d6. Rook e8. I mean, my God. You're black, right? I mean, you're hanging on by your fingernails. The best result you can hope for is a draw, and that's tough mentally. King to c7. And this is where I think Hou Yifan miscues. She goes g5. And automatically, the computer goes to 0.00. With the computer like much better is rook e7. Then after bishop, then g5. I think she might have won it. Not sure. It's tough. But after g5, David can seal the draw with bishop c6. Rook e7. And rook g8. To give you an idea, if the bishop had taken, rook takes, rook g8, g6, rook takes, has to, bishop takes, and the game's over. So after rook g8, they agreed to a draw. Wow. Give you an idea, Hou Yifan ended up tying with about 5 or 6 others, I believe, maybe even 7, for third place. Now, she did pick up $15,000, I believe it was, for the top woman in the tournament. There's a lot of women's prizes here, which is very awesome. And she picked up a little bit of money in the big bunch up in third place. Now, David, with this draw, ends up clear second. He ended up with 8 points, and Hikaru Nakamura 8.5. So, this was a big game. This was a $10,000 game for Hou Yifan, and basically the same for David. She would picked up an extra $10,000, I think, if she had won this game and got clear second. But, oh well, that's the pressures of chess. And boy, if you saw I watched it on livestream.com, and if you saw the look on David's face, boy, he was just a suffering. And I felt bad for the guy. I really did. It was kind of like watching me in one of my tournament games, just using all the skills that you have, what little there is or not, to just draw out of a terrible mistake. But they both made mistakes, so I guess a fair result is a draw. So there's one of the games from the last round of the Gibraltar Chess Festival 2015, the Masters section. I hope you enjoyed it. One more game coming up is the game with Carl Nakamura. We're going to have to check that out. And as I always say, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.